This is the Witcher podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back with the second part of our coverage of The Witcher Season 2, talking about Episode 3, Reunion, and Episode 4, The Invitation.
For all the Brotherhood's faults, they respect magic. She deserves to know what hers is capable of. She deserves control of her destiny. Please help me make this right. For us. For her. After all this time. After all your searching, you actually did it. Did what? Became a mother.
Welcome back, fellow Witchers. It's TV Podcast Industries. I'm one of your hosts, Derek, and we're talking about The Witcher Season 3, Episode 3, Reunion, and Episode 4, The Invitation.
Hello there, fellow Witchers. I am your other host, John. Welcome back.
Yeah, just the two of us again to talk about two more episodes of the first half of The Witcher Season 3.
Yes, we are a band of two.
We are.
Traversing through the continent at the moment. Chris has stopped off to drink some ale.
Well, I don't think he's drinking any ale at the moment. I think he's just dealing with baby milk.
Yes, I was just trying to be a little more fantasy epic,
right.
You know, with Chris downing the ale, probably in the company, certainly of small people, but also, dare I say it, wenches as well.
Okay, I'm not sure if his wife would be very pleased with that.
I don't think so either. I do not mean it.
Okay, well, maybe Miles is the chosen one. Maybe that's what
it could be that, yes, yeah. He's looking after the golden egg.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. Well, enough about Chris. Let's get into our discussion about the next episode of The Witcher. Exactly as we did last time, we're going to cover each episode separately within this one podcast. So I'm going to talk about Episode 3, Reunion first. All of our podcasts about The Witcher are now available on tvpodcastindustries.com. Pop over there. I have a full feed of every episode that we've covered of The Witcher and The Witcher Blood Origin as well. You can also subscribe to our main podcast, TV Podcast Industries, over there as well, where you'll find our coverage of Secret Invasion every week.
Yes, loads of stuff for all you fellow witchers out there on TV Podcast Industries. You can also go to the website to leave a voicemail for our feedback, or alternatively, you can send in an email to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Yeah. We are also on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, where we do have spoiler posts for this season of The Witcher up.
Absolutely. We're also on Twitter still, TV Pod Industries. Not on Threads yet. I have been being asked about that, but we can't get Threads in Europe, unfortunately. So we won't be up on Threads for a very long time.
I know.
I would say.
Shocking.
So we'll have to stick to Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and Facebook page, Facebook group, and the website. But loads of places to find us anyway. We'd love to hear your thoughts, though. As John said, please email us if you have any thoughts about any of the episodes of The Witcher so far, or even this half of the season. We'd love to hear your thoughts for the final episode coverage on there. But let's get into Reunion, John.
Yes, our spoiler-filled discussion. Derek, let's kick this off with who gave us what, where, when, how, and why.
Well, the show, of course, is based on the book series by Andrzej Sapkowski and the game series from CD Projekt Red. Showrunner for the show, of course, is Schmidt-Hissrich. And this episode of the show is directed by Gandja Monteiro. Most recently, Gandja directed 2 episodes of Wednesday on Netflix. Very fun show.
Yeah. Yes.
And she also is directing 2 episodes of The Walking Dead spin-off, Dead City, the big budget one with Negan and Maggie in New York.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't cover Dead City over here on this podcast on TV Podcast Industries, but a show that we are covering that Gandja directed as well is Agatha Coven of Chaos. She just wrapped up production on Agatha Coven of Chaos from Marvel.
Very good. So we'll see more of Gandja in the future.
We certainly will. She also directs episode 4 of this season of Witcher 2.
Yes.
And this episode was written by Hayley Hull. Hayley's been working on The Witcher all the way back to season 1, starting out as a staff writer on season 1 and executive story editor in season 2. Also wrote the screenplay for season 1, episode 6, and wrote season 2, episode 6 as well.
Excellent stuff. Yeah. All the H's going on there.
Yeah, Hayley Hull.
Yeah, good stuff.
John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for The Witcher season 3, Episode 3, Reunion.
Sure. Jaskier is still thinking about Prince Radovid. He might just have a crush on him, but his contemplation is interrupted when Geralt needs his help with the girl he found at Castle Vuilpanne. Geralt brings the girl to a friend of his mother's, Anika. Under a potion cooked up by Anika's partner, Otto, they learn that the girl is a student called Teryn from Aretuza, who was kidnapped by a man who she'd always been afraid of as a novice at the school, and a woman with a strange voice. Geralt and Jaskier resolve to go to Aretuza, leaving Teryn with the couple. Meanwhile, after deciding Ciri needs better instruction to become the leader she believes she should be, Yennefer has to also change herself to be allowed back into the Brotherhood of Mages. But as the mages return to pick up Ciri, she is unhappy with being treated like a servant by the mages from Aretuza. Ciri steals a horse and runs to find Geralt. But on the journey, the spectral forms of the Wild Hunt bleed through to the continent, searching for Ciri, but Geralt drives them away. Up in the Northern Kingdoms, Redanian intelligence make a big play to get King Vizimir back in line, with Queen Hedwig conducting secret meetings with Nilfgaard without the permission of Dijkstra and Philippa. They have the Queen's head served to their boss in a box, blaming Nilfgaard for her murder. While back in Nilfgaard, the elf Gallatin brings Cahir to Emperor Emir and tells him of Francesca's plan to capture Ciri. He wants support to overthrow Francesca and get back on his mission to take the Northern Territories. But following a private audience with Emir, Cahir is ordered to prove himself as a good leader by murdering Gallatin. Reluctantly, Cahir brutally carries out his orders.
Yes, lots of brutality in this episode.
Lots.
As well,
yes.
Yeah. Like, it's not a show that shies away from blood or murder or torture, for that matter, but this is another episode that feels like a Game of Thrones
yes,
spin-off sometimes.
All kind of in the head and neck area.
Yeah.
So it's all a little squeaky and squidgy.
It certainly is.
Yes.
It certainly is.
But you do get a sense, and I have to say, that moment before Cahir kills Gallatin, the performance of Eamon Farron, I just really, really enjoyed, because I did get this sense that something bad was going to happen, and I didn't really have that up to that point. Certainly not while Cahir is proving his loyalty again, and I didn't expect Emir would go that route in terms of killing Gallatin. But I just really liked how he behaves in this scene. It was really edgy. There was this emphasis on the drinking, almost like the Dutch courage type of situation. But also in terms of the lines for this scene, it really felt like he was playing out and justifying in real time to Gallatin about what he was about to do.
Yeah.
And I just thought this was really, really good, because I did think something pretty horrific was going to happen there.
Really?
Because of that, but not because of the lead up. And it put me on edge for the scene, which in the end proved right for me. And I thought that was just really kind of good little performance there from Eamon Farron, which I really enjoyed, because he was so big in season 1, that fall from grace, and it's good to get a bit of time back with Cahir in this season as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked the banter between the two of them in that scene, and it was, it wasn't putting me on edge at all. I was kind of going, okay, they are making friends. Cahir finally has somebody that'll stand by his side, because while Cahir is technically a bad guy in the show, he's been punished quite a lot throughout the 2 seasons that we've seen him so far. And I think Gallatin calling out to him that, oh, you were the poor little rich boy that lost everything. And he's like, no, the money was gone way before I was kicked out of court. I thought that was just a joke, but it turns out actually, it's not a joke. That is what happened to Cahir. He is, indebted to, the emperor, effectively. Yeah. So, and willing to basically do any command, even taking out Gallatin, the one that brought him back, to court.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. As I say, I thought, the subtle behavior in that scene from Cahir was just really good. It really it felt perfect for that scene.
And bye Robbie Amell.
I know.
Yeah.
Short and sweet, I guess.
We were really surprised when he turned up on the show because he does have a lot of work on. He's a very hard working actor. He's got lots of other shows on. Was definitely surprised at him turning up, but even more surprised at how quickly he's gone.
Absolutely.
But that's kind of a side point, John. We normally take out our big moments from the episode. So what's your big moment from episode 3 of The Witcher, season 3?
For me, it's the gradual coming together of the puzzle here around, this dark mage in the shadows puppeting Rience here, and in particular with Ciri version 2, as released by Amazon. And I really enjoyed this. I loved how, with Geralt finding Ciri's doppelganger in the previous episode, first and foremost, Geralt talking to Jaskier, sort of interrupting him, obsessing about Radovid. He kind of confirms here that actually it's part of an experiment.
Right.
There's a rambling here from Teryn, the girl, and he takes her to Anika. What's really good here, not only the puzzle, but because Anika is a friend of Geralt's mum, I like how this links into the animated spin-off here.
A little bit, yeah.
Really just a touch.
Yeah.
But it's really nice after having seen the animated spin-off looking at Geralt's sort of early life.
Nightmare of the Wolf, just in case anybody hasn't seen that one.
That was a nice little touch here, and I thought it worked well in this context of Geralt being a protector of this unknown young girl.
Yeah.
And in terms of how he felt about his own mother's protection of him when he speaks with Anika later on in the episode. But I think out here with the fact that Ciri version 2 here, Teryn, is effectively enchanted and has a mind control because they need her to believe that she is Ciri. So there needs to be some manipulation here. So these experiments are kind of part of a manipulation. She is half elven, half human. And so Anika, who is a druid, is expert in potions, so gives her a potion to cure her. It will be able to so that they can find out more of the information. Like, one of the other side of this is that Anika says, all the different types of magic required for this mind control, whether it's even elven elder magic, there's a number of different things, so that the mage behind this experimentation has a lot of interests, she says, to pull this off because of the different types of magic required.
Yeah.
But Geralt it almost feels here impatient in the end, and so comes in from a conversation with Jaskier after he's been chopping wood. I do like the fact that Jaskier is kind of saying, you've kind of chopped enough wood for fires for the next 2 centuries.
Yes, exactly.
But it is something about Jaskier talking about the source of the original series sort of own sort of strength and internal strength that makes Geralt impatient, because Jaskier hits on there's always a source to the magic. And so, in effect, he interrupts Anika's potion, which needs a long time for it to take effect. But he does wake up the girl and finds out her name, Teryn. He finds out that she was dragged from her room by a man and a woman. But also then, importantly, that the man who pulled her from the room scared her at Aretuza. And the woman, it has a funny voice. So all of a sudden you're going, okay, this mage, this rebel reject mage isn't a reject because they're a mage at Aretuza, which is the home of the Brotherhood of Mages. You then get a really great scene though where seemingly Teryn then becomes possessed and starts speaking in tongues, or being manipulated by a third person.
Yes.
And it's really good because it sounds like the woman with the funny voice, and it morphs into a kind of a combination of that voice with a male voice as well. Most likely the mage who has tried to do this manipulation on Teryn. And I just really liked how Teryn here changes, and the voices are saying to Geralt, I am Ciri's destiny, and causes chaos then in Anika's home. We have Otto, who starts to turn into a werewolf.
Well, I love that. I must say, there's a little touch of that felt like The Exorcist.
Yes.
It felt like she'd been possessed and had realized that the best way of taking them all out was to take off this amulet that he's wearing to stop him from becoming a werewolf again. And it's just that moment where the camera turns to her and she's got this smile on her face, like Regan in The Exorcist, where she's like the demon possessed and going, and I've also got another one up on you here. He's about to turn back into a werewolf. And that's a big, powerful fight that could be happening in this room. We don't see the transformation. Jaskier and Geralt stop it before he transforms, but you can hear the noises. You can hear his body start to creak as if it's about to start shape-shifting into the werewolf, to take them out. So I thought that was really a really good use of her in the scene. I thought that was really cool.
Well, that's it. It felt really good because it felt real danger in that moment. I love like the interjection of that possession, as you say. Yeah, it's cool. Really helped. I like that how it got resolved quite quickly. I mean, at the end of the day, clever use not to have Otto transform into a werewolf. Yeah. And also then Otto manages to get more of Anika's potion to Teryn so that she is sedated again, and that can work its own magic to undo all this manipulation and mind control that has been performed on Teryn. Yeah.
But overall, you're right. This moment in the episode where we're learning more about the plot, where we're learning more about what's going on and who could potentially be behind it, I thought worked really well. We only get one scene towards the end of the episode with Rience and what we suspect is the woman with the funny voice. It's the mage who can't talk because she has her face burnt. She can't speak, so she uses telepathy to speak to people. So her voice comes across weirdly. So to Teryn, this is probably who she's talking about here.
And that's the thing. Again, those puzzles coming in a bit later. So, I mean, in that moment, you're going, the woman with the funny voice, who is that? And then you get this scene. So, these parts of the jigsaw start to come together, which I really, really enjoyed, through, this. I mean, even in, Redania, you get elements here of maybe more of the mystery or more of the plan, as well. But this has, good amount of meaty substance here around, who this mage is. And most importantly, that it is a mage residing in Aretuza, where Yennefer is taking Ciri too. So there's real danger here now for Ciri. I think the other side of this, as I mentioned just right at the start here, I actually really like the personal element that links into the animation, with his mum. I think Geralt sometimes doesn't always get a personal moment.
Yeah,
here.
absolutely.
And in fact, dare I say it, he even cries, and so on. But, I just kind of liked, the sentiment here as Geralt is speaking with Anika after she's recovering from being flung across her house by the possessed Teryn. Asking how his mother, who has died, and, Anika is clear to Geralt, she died badly and beaten up. But Geralt, is a real sage actually, because he says, I didn't want her hurt. I just to recognize what she did, because she abandoned him. And, Anika's point, again, I just thought it was really nice kind of logic and reasoning behind this. She says, yes, it wasn't the only choice. She didn't have to abandon you, but it was the one she made. And that's where we are. You can't think about what other choices she made. There were other choices on that table that she possibly thought of, but in that moment, at that time, the choice, that was the choice she made.
Yeah.
And it brings him back to just reminiscing a bit about his childhood, about that she smelt of the embers from the fire, but he also remembers the hunger, and also that, he would have done anything to make her smile, and a little tear trickles down. And, I think that's a really important moment for Geralt as a character, in this show as well. So I liked how these two elements came together, in Anika's home, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is great to get that kind of, view into Geralt's life and what happened to him in the past. We haven't gotten much of that at all in the show. So, it is great to have those little moments, and an interesting tie into the overall kind of theme of the show as well. His mother died because she was beaten, as you say, but beaten because she went into a town and they believed that she was an elf. Yes. So she was beaten because of that, and that led her to her death. I like that, again, Anika calls out that her mother never forgot the choice that she made. You make choices to save your children that on the outside you will constantly question, and she may have questioned that until the day she died, is how Anika puts it, which I just thought was quite an interesting way of talking about his mother and the choice that she made to leave him behind.
Absolutely. But the whole upshot of this now is that, Geralt and Jaskier are also on their way to Aretuza, armed with this information.
Yeah. I was wondering earlier on in the episode as to why Geralt brought Jaskier, to meet Ciri version 2. I was kind of going, hang on a second. Why does he need Jaskier here? I'm glad he's there because he's the one that stops the werewolf attack. He's the one that is able to, calm down Teryn, to get her, to knock her out effectively. He's also the one that came up with the idea, about the source, even though he didn't know that. All good things that have happened, but there's no particular reason why Geralt went and got him, except he likes his traveling companion. Yeah. And in case he had to move on from Anika's house to wherever the next destination is, he takes Jaskier with him from the town he's staying in, basically.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that's probably what it is. Now, we need to go right now, Jaskier. We're on the next stage of our mission, and I'm not coming back to get you.
I think the other important thing is, that scene where Geralt is chopping the wood and you have the conversation with Jaskier. In that moment, Jaskier tells Geralt about the deal that he has had with Dijkstra and Pip or Philippa, and his reasons for it to make Ciri safe, and in a sense, Geralt can agree why he's chosen that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
He comes across really rationally here.
Yeah.
Geralt is a very rational man, but because Jaskier's experience with him is that he's not very talkative and very brutal person, he probably thinks that the reaction from Geralt would be pretty bad to him saying he made a deal. But they talk it out quite rationally, and it comes to a good conclusion that Geralt can see why he made the decision, but if you think about it further, she'll never be safe with them.
Although, as Jaskier himself said, Geralt is a hammer, which is no use for dealing with the problem that is a bowl of porridge. Yeah. And on the flip side to that, Radovid, who we see him obsessing about, is a spoon, because that is
perfect for porridge.
Perfect for porridge. I think just on a side note, interestingly with Jaskier, because with Radovid, his motivation, his intention is still a little bit unclear to me. It's still a bit of a mystery, but Jaskier pulls a few threads there on that, saying he is insightful, he's intelligent, and he's sharp. He says he can't meet Geralt because, he's like a knife, and a knife can't meet with Geralt. He also says you can't play a player, so he recognizes that Radovid, for whatever reason, is a player here. Yeah. Doing stuff. And you see that with how Radovid interacts as well, even with Dijkstra and Philippa.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So that was another good kind of moment around the Radovid character, other than, the crush and so on as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it real or pretend?
The crush, or?
Yes. Is he a damn fine actor? effectively.
Well, I guess
as
we'll
his
find out.
character, I mean, is it part of a play if he is a player?
Maybe, but we'll find out pretty soon. Probably in the next episode that we're recording on this podcast.
Yes, indeed.
So we don't want to set that up as a big mystery. But anyway,
Well,
we won't talk about it on this one, though, on this section, though.
Yes,
is that it for your big moment?
It certainly is, Derek.
Cool.
What is your big moment for episode 3?
You know, I could have picked a few big moments from this episode, but the one that will probably stay with me for a while is I'm going to call it staying ahead of the king. Redanian intelligence take their opportunity to put themselves back on top of Redania, where I guess Dijkstra has always felt he belongs. He's the one that's worked so hard to keep the power there, regardless of what king is sitting on the throne. And he feels that the king and his wife Hedwig are getting ahead of themselves, are using their kingly and queenly power to make inroads into territory that he feels he should be the owner of. You know, they went behind his back and made an arrangement with Nilfgaard, without consulting him, without anything else. We see King Vesemir effectively putting Dijkstra in his place, saying, "You give me the information, I make the decisions. That's how our relationship works. I don't need to consult with you on those decisions. You provide info, I make decisions, and that's it." All over a really interesting game of what seems like Ball in Peasant's Face. Would that be the name of the game?
But
it's like a very small version of lacrosse where you don't use the goals, you use the face of one of your servants.
Yeah, although the king also was wearing one of the face masks, the protective face masks, and had a goal behind him in the same way as his opponent.
He did.
So I'm just thinking that actually Vesemir was supposed to be getting it into the goal behind the man, but found greater fun and enjoyment by hurling it at the man's head, because it's off camera, but his final throw of this metal ball seems to suggest that man didn't outlast this game of whatever they were playing.
Well, although Radovid does say he has 3 more shots to go when he cuts the game short to go off and meet his wife, or meet the queen. I don't know.
So he may have won 3-0 then, because there was no one there alive to actually protect the goal.
I just think it's like a slightly more enhanced, including weapons version of the kids' game. Who can hit each other harder? I'll go first. Is what I think it was like, and the king gets 10 shots before his opponent gets a shot in. But back to Redanian intelligence themselves. Yes, Dijkstra's taking this as a big problem. Philip and himself have been working really hard to maintain their control. And I like how this plays out. Their plan and approach plays out. They want to use, the Prince Radovid because they've been tasked with, effectively chaperoning him all across, the continent looking for Ciri. They haven't come very far with that. And the way that they use him is they effectively take Queen Hedwig's head, put it in a box in Radovid's room, and have Radovid deliver it to the king. Yeah. Unbeknownst to him, he thinks it's a nice present for the king. You know, he probably thinks it's full of ale or something. But that moment when the king opens the box and sees his wife's head inside and freaks out and runs out of the room, I love the turn on Dijkstra there. It's instant. It's instantaneous. The minute he looks shocked, and the minute the king walks out of the room, all pretense drops. He sits in the throne, effectively, eating the king's food. He's now back on top here. And Radovid, clearly shocked about this, feels like he has some power there in the room. He says, I'll tell the king exactly what you did, and then you'll be on the outs again, and we'll take the power back. And Dijkstra says, no, you're the one that brought the head to the room here. How do I know that you weren't involved? So, Dijkstra again using all of his strategy. So it feels like he's going to get what he wants out of this. The possibility that he is creating here is that Nilfgaard actually made a play and killed the queen. So that's going to be, well, he can actually choose whoever he wants to be the person responsible for this, and set the king and his armies against them, I guess.
I have to say, I love Redanian intelligence.
Me too.
I think the partnership of Dijkstra and Philippa are just really, really good. There's also an element to me because of Redanian intelligence. I just think of Team America with Central Intelligence. And
Bad intelligence.
Bad intelligence. Yes. Yeah. But I really like these characters. I love how they operate together. It's a nice little sort of almost comedic element here a bit, but also, really meaningful to the story. So I really like these two. Yeah. I loved, Dijkstra putting, Radovid back in his place here. And
it's like you sit at court, drink all the ale that you can. And if I need you, I'll call you, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing at the moment is, Philippa seems to believe that Radovid is more use than actually Dijkstra does, for sure. Yeah. And I'm wondering if that's tying into that somehow she is seeing sort of beyond what Dijkstra is, that, he's a spoilt brat effectively, and maybe realizes that there is a player there, or she understands his motivation or intent. I don't know, but I really like, these three, with Radovid, Dijkstra and Philippa.
Yeah, me too.
I also like Vizimir. I think he's it's not that he's stupid, but he's just almost eccentric a little bit.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think in the same way, he is that standard spoiled brat that became king, and Prince Radovid is the spoiled brat that's his brother, so he doesn't have to actually even do any of the kingly duties. But it's the fact that he doesn't know how to play the game, to use the Game of Thrones analogy on it again. The king doesn't know how to play the game. He doesn't know who you need to keep happy at court. He feels like, I'm king, I can do whatever I want. That is not the case here. Certainly not in Redania. And there's one other thing that comes out of these scenes here. We see Philippa with the king's messenger, her lover, at the end of the episode, where effectively we find out who the murderer of the queen is. We find out this is Philippa's lover that took her head. Seems to have quite enjoyed taking her head, despite it being quite a difficult job. But she gives her some more information, kind of to piece together who Rience could be working for. Says that there is a mage backing him, and the connection then connects back to Nilfgaard. So whoever it is that's supporting Rience seems to be a mage working for Nilfgaard.
Yeah. And also, it's even, she mentions that Emir is using a mage, which is unusual, because he is effectively, it's not that he's anti-mage, but it seems like he has become that, and he doesn't like to use them, such as with Fringilla, being the wine taster to make sure it's not poisoned. And this mage is the woman with no voice, because she's not speaking but using telepathy instead, and could portal past the protection spells placed around the castle by Philippa. But it's previously, Philippa has been trying to track Rience as well, and knows of the different energy of Rience's portal. And as soon as her lover says it was dark black, she immediately puts it that Rience works for Nilfgaard. But I like the fact that there's then this other scene where Rience is really sort of bemoaning the fact that he is working for Nilfgaard here, at his master's request, and that wasn't part of the deal.
Exactly.
But I love how she comes back to him saying that the master indicates that working with Nilfgaard is not the same as working for Nilfgaard. So actually, this shadowy mage in the scenes is puppeting a lot of different people across the continent.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's it. That's my big moment from the episode. As I said, there was a couple of other little things on other major things in the episode, but that was the one that really stood out to me as my big moment from the episode. Any notes on episode 3? Anything else you want to talk about before we move on to episode 4, John?
Yes, just a big shout out to the chaperone given to Ciri by Yennefer at the Genkardi Bank. It's just one of those things where I just really enjoyed this side character's moment in the world of The Witcher. I just love the fact that he was laying into Ciri all the way through, you pound donuts like a truffle pig, or you little duck's arse, But then when, Ciri is trying to sort of, the fight with the monster, in the market, he kind of comes up and punches the owner of the monster in the face who's going to attack her, and is kind of quite chuffed with himself. And he's like, oh, it's like Ciri has opened up this whole new world. He goes, I don't even know if I'll be employed anymore. But I don't care. Like, in the end, it's turned out like after being sort of given the job of chaperoning this kind of, to his mind, spoiled brat, he's actually quite enjoyed it, and it doesn't really care if he gets fired because he's just hit, an owner of the big show in town, which is around monsters. But he doesn't care. So I just thought it was a really nice little, just a nice little character just thrown in as the chaperone, with Ciri. Mind well the name. Yes, indeed. And yes, also just, we do get, Istrid here as well.
We do. Yeah, we do in a fun scene where he's got a thief that's gone out to find all of his items for him. Can't even get his name right. Doesn't really care.
Just calls it ancient elven garbage that she has gone out to collect for him.
Exactly.
But he is looking for a book,
on monoliths.
All on the monoliths. But he's looking for this book, and it went to Aretuza as well by order of the White Flame. So again, another little element of the puzzle here.
Absolutely. A really big one that was only in one scene is as Ciri's escaping and going back to Geralt on horseback. We see the Wild Hunt arrive. This is in the background all the time, from back to season 1, back to season 2 anyway. The Wild Hunt is coming, and the Wild Hunt is coming for Ciri. We see, these spectral forces coming down, and they touch her. You see Ciri reacting to it, not realizing that they'll be able to touch her. And they're saying to her, she is death. So whether they want her to join the Wild Hunt, are they, is it the other member of the apocalypse that they want Ciri to join them? But it's a very quick moment with them, but again, seem to be seeping into our world through absolutely through the portals, I guess. Yeah,
really, really good. Yeah, I mean, for me, I would give this 4 truffle pigs out of 5.
Very good.
I just really enjoyed the puzzles starting to make sense on the table. And some of them put together, and it really sort of drives the danger and the intrigue and the threat level forward. So I really thought there was a great amount of momentum from this episode.
Absolutely. And I think, since I don't normally grade episode by episode, we talk about every episode, but probably since I was so critical of last week's episode of how confusing it is, I just have to say this episode was so much better. Even though there was probably as many stories going on here, more characters were together in scenes that mattered in this episode. We spent more time with each character, and it just worked so much better as an episode. So I enjoyed it so much more watching this episode. Also, one final note, just good to see Jaskier back with Vespula, who was throwing all of his crap out the last time we saw her.
Yes.
He's back there again. They're still pushing and pulling against each other, I suppose. And even when she's finding out that he's potentially got a crush on somebody else, could have gotten very amorous again before Geralt knocked on the door. So I like that. I like that relationship. Good stuff.
Yeah, I think the only final thing would be that, Ciri and Yen really do argue quite badly in this. I mean, the reason why she leaves the village where they're at, and she's then sort of ends up being chased by the Wild Hunt, and that's all down to Yen returning with mages from Aretuza, including Tissia, and they really treat her as a slave, getting wine, ordering her about. Also, Tricia does weep blood directly at her, which I guess I would want to run away from that. But but it's not a good introduction for Ciri to these mages who, she thinks she's going there, to get protection. And in the end, I guess there are some home truths, sort of dealt out in the moment between Ciri and Yen, that means she just ups, and heads off, using her talisman to try and get Geralt to come for her. So it's a big element, but, just need to mention it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. There's even the moment between Tissia and Yennefer when Yen is asking Tissia to train up Ciri, that she'll do anything to get Ciri trained. She needs the help. She needs someone as powerful as Tissia. And I love that Tissia turns to her and goes, after everything you've tried, everything you've done, you've finally become a mother. That's a huge moment in Yennefer's arc. Yen has pushed back against all of them for taking away your ability to have children, tried every spell, tried every potion to try and get the ability to be a mother back. And now Tissia saying to her, this is what a mother does, sacrifices everything to give their daughter a better start in life. So you are a mother now. So loads of big moments, as I said, loads of things going on in this episode, but much more focused, much better focused than the previous episode. But we're not going to talk about everything else. There's lots more to talk about in episode 4.
Certainly. And she warns Tissia about the Dark Mage backing Rience as well.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. Good stuff. We also have some feedback in from our wonderful fellow watchers.
Yes, we have an email in from Coffee and Vodka who says, greetings fellow Spectra rendering defenders. A bit chaotic, but held together by the themes of ties and loyalties. It didn't take long to uncover the mystery of Ciri's LMD, Teryn, the beheading of the Queen, and the telepathic sorceress. All roads lead to the mysterious puppet master, the White Flame, or another player in the game. Yennefer is not back a half hour before proposing a game-changing plan after her politically dramatic Season 2 exit. Even if the idea of conclave does sound good, Tissia would be wise to take it with a grain of salt. Still, it all looks as if it's building to one hell of a crowded final conflict. So far, so fun. Looking forward to your take on the show so far. 4 ripped-off ring wraiths, wee wyverns, and quartered queens out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka. Thanks so much, Coffee and Vodka. Actually, I mean, you are right. I think there is a very much that hurried, quick step, from Season 2, the end of Season 2, with what she's proposing here with with Yen pitching her idea for a conclave, without much consequence, And I think you're right. There is a big acceptance of Tissia here of Yennefer. I guess they are the closest allies. Yes. So maybe that's part of it. Yeah, it doesn't seem, even though the previous episode was about unintended consequences and what you do, whether there's much consequence here, for, Yennefer at this moment. But yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka.
Absolutely. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka. There is also the point that Yen is, playing up to it a bit. She says to Ciri that, you have to be the person that you're willing to accept to stay in a place like this. Yep. She's putting on a front in front of everybody to get what she wants here as well. So she's probably being a bit more subservient, than she would be naturally. And that's what Ciri's seeing in her subservience to all of the rest of the witches around her. That feels like something Ciri wouldn't ever do, right? So,
yeah.
Or feels like she wouldn't ever. But she hasn't been in this position before, really. They protected her from that. They allowed her to learn on the road, and push back and fight back. She's not learning with other mages. She's not learning with other witchers. On Geralt's side, she's learning on the road. So yeah, I guess, that Ciri has a lesson to learn there herself.
Yeah, definitely.
Good stuff. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka. Over on Facebook, we got our message in from Dr. Bob Phillips about this episode, who says, things I didn't expect. Head in a box. Tissia being almost overwhelmed by Cigarillo. The bard showing more than a thin smear of intelligence. And the reunion of the title being the trio of heroes. Almost. Or was that a version of the Wild Hunt? Is the new Portal version going to be powered by chaotic horror? Is Ciri's source the monoliths? And she just needs a little slice to control her magic? Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, will she draw power from the monoliths when she's doing her magic, when she finally gets there and able to actually do magic?
Yeah, because Blood Origins talked about, the ancient hidden magic of dealing with monoliths as well, which also probably links to this book that we saw in Blood Origins as well.
Ah, yes, this book on monoliths that Istrid's looking for. Yes, very good, very good. Good stuff. Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. Keep sending it in. feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop on over to the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries and pop in your thoughts on any of the spoiler posts on there. That's it for our discussion of episode 3. We'll be back after a quick break for our chat about episode 4, The Invitation.
Nations are invisible lines that people assign meaning to. A life, however, a life has real meaning. It's warm skin and a beating heart. It should only be taken as a last resort. Righteousness can easily become rage. Justice can easily become scorn. If you want to be a queen, be a queen. I think you'll make an excellent one.
Welcome back again, fellow Witchers, after that short break, on to episode 4 of season 3 of The Witcher, The Invitation.
Yes. Derek, let us get straight in with our spoiler-filled discussion. What are some of the episode details?
Absolutely, yeah, I'll mention it again. The show is based on the book series by Andrzej Sapkowski and the game series from CD Projekt Red, showrunner Schmidt-Hissrich, and this episode directed again by Gandja Monteiro. This episode was written by Ray Benjamin. This is Ray's first full writing credit on the show, but she was a script coordinator throughout season 2, so has worked in the writer's room with all the rest of the writers.
Welcome to the writing credit, Ray Benjamin.
Yeah, absolutely. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for The Witcher season 3, episode 4, The Invitation?
Sure. Aboard a ship to Aretuza, Geralt, Ciri, and Jaskier and the rest of the crew are attacked by an Eshna, which Geralt and Ciri team up and kill. At Aretuza, in spite of opposition from Stregobor and Artorius Vigo, Yennefer convinces the Brotherhood of Sorcerers to host a conclave for mages to strengthen the unity of the North against Nilfgaard. And later she visits the Redanian court in person to invite Philippa, Ahart, and try to win the support of King Vizimir, who orders not only Philippa, but Dijkstra and Prince Radovid to attend as well. On her way back through the portal to Aretuza, Yennefer is ambushed by a creature that looks like Geralt, but she manages to escape. Upon reaching Francesca and the Scoia'tael, Cahir persuades her to join forces in their search for Ciri on behalf of the Emperor Emhyr. Although Emhyr believes the former mage of Nilfgaard Fringilla is dead, she has escaped and is enjoying her newfound freedom in a local tavern. There she learns about the conclave of the Brotherhood of Mages. Meanwhile, Triss and Istred investigate the missing Aretuzian novices and the Book of Monoliths, and similar to Yennefer and Geralt, they arrive at the conclusion that Stregobor is the mastermind behind those events, and is the mage behind Rience's actions. Meanwhile, Ciri, with Jaskier babysitting, are kept in a safe haven away from Aretuza. Radovid tracks Jaskier down, and they kissed, just as Geralt, Yennefer, and the Northern Mages gather at Aretuza to begin the conclave with a spectacular ball.
Ooh, yes, the conclave of mages seems to be a big centering point for the series, I guess.
Yes.
Getting everybody back together. And a very romantic kiss in this episode. Jaskier and Prince Radovid finally getting together after the couple of episodes where you knew there was definitely a connection between the two of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There was that, and also the kiss between Yennefer and Geralt as well,
right,
which that scene in general was just really, really good with both Jaskier and Ciri riffing on what they were possibly saying. So I love that. I did like how it moved from humor and then sort of immediately, as they became a bit more intimate, Jaskier just gets a little bit more serious before they pull it back to being humorous again. I really enjoyed that scene.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. And yeah, as I say, it's just lovely to see Radovid and Jaskier getting together as well. I thought that was a lovely scene. I thought it was really well played between the two of them. I love this idea that Radovid couldn't get that song out of his head from Jaskier, so he learns it, even though he's a terrible lute player. But as Jaskier says, maybe he can teach him to play lute.
Yes.
That's quite nice.
As he says, you don't just see people, you see the best in people.
Love it.
And he's connecting with that sexiness, I guess.
Well, absolutely. But also, this is a knock-on effect of what happened when we talked about it in episode 3, that moment in Redania where effectively Prince Radovid has always kind of been, player in course, nothing's gonna bother me. I'm in power, or at least my brother's in power. And all that rug has been pulled out from underneath him as well. So, the fact that he's able to reconnect with Jaskier here is obviously a major comfort to him.
Yeah, I did like the fact as well. He said, I tried to knock, but it didn't go well.
Absolutely.
Yennefer has put a protection spell on the hut.
It probably knocked him back, quite a bit. Having a door that knocks you back is never a good thing, is it?
Not at all. I just wonder how protected though, given, the last episode and Philippa's enchantments weren't good enough to allow that dark, corrupted portal to make its way through that protection. So,
yeah, that's very true. That's very true. The fact they keep mentioning it. Don't worry, Ciri's safe. I put a spell on it. It's absolutely fine. Totally protected. She'll be grand till morning. Don't worry about it. Nobody even needs to check. Don't go in and check and see if Ciri's okay before morning. It'll be fine. Yeah, I would be worried. I know she's a very powerful mage, very powerful witch, old Yennefer, but, I don't know. I'm never too sure about if you continually repeatedly mention that the person is safe. Are they really safe?
Exactly.
But let's get into our big moment, from episode 4. John, where do you want to start for your big moment for the episode?
For me, I've got the ferryman and the ferry crossing across the Strait of Water, as Geralt, Jaskier and Ciri make their way to Aretuza. I actually really like this because in the context of everything else going on in this episode, which I really liked as well, this felt like old school, The Witcher, and Ciri. They're taking on the monster, the Eshna that has been harassing the ferryman Obin. And I just kind of really liked that. But tinged within that action piece, which I really enjoyed, was, some really nice moments here.
Yes.
Firstly, we have that Obin saw the wild hunt coming down from the tower at Aretuza, and talks of its meaning about war coming and, but in the end is happy enough that should be left to soothsayers and so on.
Yeah, but he does say it's more than war. He says it's destruction. This is the death of everything people will be fighting. This is annihilation. This isn't just your standard war, one kingdom against the other.
Agreed.
It will be all peoples against each other and annihilation. And I think he stands down and says, I'll leave it to soothsayers, when he sees Ciri's face and Geralt's reaction. It's kind of like, hang on a second, don't talk in front of the kid about the wild hunt and how bad it could be. So I think he steps back for that reason, but I would say anybody else, he probably would have continued that conversation.
No, definitely. So, I think the other side of this is we see that Jaskier's competition, Valdo Marx and his troupe of singers and bards arrives here. And these rivals to Jaskier, and I just like how that played out. They get the fare that's half price, whereas the payment for the three of them is that they have to kill a monster, putting them in imminent danger of death. I like that they do their music, which just feels more rockier. Valdo Marx is he can't get Jaskier's name right. He calls him Johan and Jorma. it's all in the face of Jaskier as they're looting and singing their way around the deck of this ferryman, but, and have also gotten the invite to, Aretuza, to this conclave.
At the ball, yes.
And Jaskier is there without any invitation, whatsoever.
Didn't even know about it.
No, so I just really, really enjoyed, that aspect to it as well.
All Jaskier's connections and nobody even told
I
them
know.
that the conclave is going on. They're going there for a completely different reason. So I love that he makes up, well, I've got very important business, from, Yennefer. She's the one that told me, and she's much more important than the one that hired you for the ball.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so petty and,
Absolutely.
But great at the same time. The other thing I like here is, not only do you have the hunting skills on offer, on display by Ciri, on the Eschner, which, she's good. She's good at that, as well. There is another really nice moment between Geralt, and her as well. And, Geralt giving a bit of sage advice. You hear Ciri saying, well, maybe I should use steel, to keep, people in line and to enforce my will. And he says, just be careful, that righteousness doesn't become rage or justice becomes scorn. And he goes through the story. He says, I'll take a job, I'll take coin, from anyone, for monsters, no matter where they're from or who they are. However, a life has real meaning. There is a warm and beating heart behind that. So be careful how you approach this. But he tempers this, with, if you want to be a queen, you should, and you'd make an excellent queen.
Yes.
And Ciri is really kind of pleased. You can see the confidence that he instills in her, and to the point where, even that translates obviously to the hunting skills, as Ciri is the one that lands the killer blow.
Absolutely.
Discussing through the weaknesses on the Eschner, for when it attacks. I did just really like that, attack on board. I loved that the monster just was really good. Even though its legs were also like arms as it clutched the sides of the boat, as it was going around the sort of central cog in the ship, as Ciri and Geralt are sort of putting blows on it. But, with the final kill blow, again, there's a pride there from Geralt seeing her make that kill on this monster. And I like that she's, kind of looking up at him, sort of recognizing that, just as the green blood splatter at the end, kind of goes over Ciri's face. It was a really funny little touch. And I think it's just more generally actually for this series that there are these little touches here that I think are absolutely played for humor. Yeah. And I really, really like them. Because it's just nice little touches throughout. And that was one that just stood out to me, for me. So I really like this whole, ferryman aspect here. And I thought there was a lot of stuff around that fed into the episode as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree. That the idea that they have this really annoying bard troop on board that are getting attacked by the monster as well. I thought that was quite fun. Did you catch the little line when they're arriving at Aretuza, and Valdemark says to the first guy that was attacked, "Oh, you got hit on the head," and then goes, "Actually, you sound more in key now."
Yeah, no,
thought that was quite funny,
really good
as well.
Yeah,
but there's that is a lovely moment between Geralt and Ciri here on the boat as well. She has another great moment with Jaskier as well, where Jaskier is very complimentary about her, and she's kind of going, "Wow, this is the nicest thing you've ever said to me," So I think people are treating her a little more as an equal in this season. Definitely, she's definitely a more active character this season. Her actually taking out the monster here aboard the ship is part of that. But there is the other side about how powerful Ciri is and the things that she's done that have affected the world. Early on, we hear the explanation of the Wild Hunt from episode 3 that effectively by Ciri opening up portals and going into other worlds, she's left a door open on the way back, which has allowed the Wild Hunt to come back in. And effectively, Geralt's explaining, you know, with you training up your powers and with you training up your magic, hopefully that means you'll be able to do all of that and close some doors behind you as well.
Yeah, exactly, which I liked. And also...
Sounds a little bit like a parent saying shut that door after you.
Yeah, exactly.
You out into the neighborhood, yeah.
And also him, you know, kind of, you know, after the argument between Ciri and Yen, him saying that Yennefer will forgive you, you know, and she does as well, you know, that things were said in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
You know, Ciri, wants to take some of those back, because they, you know, she realizes they were unfair and is worried now about her relationship with Yennefer. But ultimately, you know, when they meet, all is forgiven and moved on.
Yeah. As we kind of said, protection spell over the house. That's fine. Everything grand. She's just made really close friends with Jaskier. She's made up with Yen, and Geralt said the nicest thing to her ever by saying that she'd be a great princess. Ciri will be fine in that house all alone.
It doesn't bode well, does it? Really?
It doesn't. Makes me afraid. Anyway, anything else on that point, John?
No, that's all from me. Derek, what's your big moment from episode 4?
I think we have to talk about Yennefer and the Mage Conclave. It's a big moment for Yennefer. You know, again, even when she was going to Aretuza, she was saying that she wasn't sure how they were going to take her. You know, they tried to burn her at the stake, and it didn't happen last time that she was back there. And there's still some resentment. We still see Stregobor and Arturius Vigo beside him, the two of them, the kind of dissenting backbenchers almost for the rest of the mages.
Yeah, they're not happy.
No, they're criticizing everything that Yennefer says, and even the support that she has from Tissia. They're going, well, of course you'd support her.
Yeah.
You know, but it's only as the rest of the speech is delivered from Yen, where she's saying, you know, we have the opportunity here to come together, to come back as the Brotherhood and be our best selves, so that we can maintain some semblance of power within the continent. You know, let the kingdoms battle amongst themselves. We don't need to be them. We need to be the Brotherhood again. We need to come back together. So while there are those two dissenting voices, they're unable to stop this conclave. It's going to go ahead. She's going to be able to bring everybody back together. But we have some moments here with her talking to Tissia about it. We have a question as to why Tissia and Philippa separated, Philippa being the mage that's up in Redenia. And Tissia kind of says, sure, you know, the friendship ran its course, but,
yeah, she's quite offhand, isn't she?
She is very offhand, but Yen makes the decision that she's going to go by portal to, speak to Philippa directly. I love that scene as well. She arrives just in time for the funeral of Queen Hedwig, and speaks to Philippa at the back of the room, antagonizing the king, who's just lost his queen. You know, he's making a speech over it. It's also very funny if you read just the subtitles of what the king is actually saying over the body of his dead queen. Have a read back if you didn't notice what his actual speech is about what the queen meant to him. It's really funny, but he's completely distracted by the fact that Yennefer's here, kicks everybody in the court out, and Yennefer goes to him to get him to send Philippa to the conclave. And Yen hits on one little great note here. She uses the death of the queen as a possible reason for Redenia to be worried, and effectively turns Dijkstra's plan on its head and gets him sent to the conclave along with Prince Radovid and Philippa, who is her intended target. So all three of them sent by the king, just by Yen mixing things up a little bit.
Exactly. It was really good. I have to say, as the three of them are all nattering at the back of the funeral speech from King Vizimir, again, it was another humorous moment. It was like the naughty children at the back,
absolutely,
sort of getting caught out, and the rage. You know, Yen has a very, at least in this episode, Yen has a very good way of diffusing the tension caused by herself, both in terms of the Council of Mages, but also here then in Vizimir's own backyard. And I mean, actually, you know, you have Tissia mentioning how, you know, she's actually good at politics here. You know, and that was kind of a nice little touch here. You know, it kind of at least puts some kind of basis as to why they aren't holding her to account. I mean, they are and they aren't, or at least Stregobor and Artorius are. You know, everyone else is seemingly going along with Tasia, who,
thank you all so much for forgiving my past, is Yen's great way of diffusing that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. Yeah.
And Tasia as well, like you say, she's a little offhand in this. Not only does she sort of really sweep under the carpet what happened between her and Philippa, but also, we have another novice that has disappeared from Aretuza, Elizabeth, which has been noticed by Triss, who is meeting Istrid. And they are now becoming worried about what is going on.
I'll tell you what, if I was in sorcery school, I'd want one of my teachers to be like Triss, the one that notices that 10 or 15 different kids have gone missing from the school. She mentions it to everybody. She says it to Tasia, and she's like, oh yeah, don't worry about that. Everybody's been sent away because of the conclave. Yeah. She mentions it to Istrid, and he's like, sure, three girls disappeared during my year in school as well. They just couldn't hack it. It's only when she looks up the book to find out who's been missing that she realizes everyone that's gone is half elvish, half human. So there's definitely something wrong there, right?
Exactly. But also even Tasia is told that there was blood on the wall, like previously noticed by Triss.
Yeah.
So
I guess we should get less accident-prone young mages is kind of her reaction to it.
So
is that covering up something, though?
Don't know. But it's just she's becoming a little evasive here, I think, ultimately, is to say.
Absolutely. But that investigation and that moment with Trish, it was a little note I wanted to bring in anyway, because I thought it was quite important. I know you were like myself because we watched the episode together, John. We both looked down the list of names in the book and instantly saw Teryn in there, the girl who was impersonating Ciri last episode. So we as the audience now know what happened to these missing girls, at least part of it, because of what Geralt told us. It wasn't until Geralt actually explained to Ciri what had happened that I was able to kind of catch exactly what was going on. So that castle that he went to, which had the three heads coming out of the wall, and is where he found Teryn, those three heads coming out of the wall were also former students who were kidnapped. Yeah. That creature that was created of the body parts, they were old kids that had been kidnapped and experimented on by this mage, and the only one that survived was Teryn, and her mind had been broken by the experimentation done on her. So that makes that scene from 2 episodes ago, that makes it even worse. It makes it even more horrible what he's doing. He's taking these people out. This mage that we don't know yet is taking kids out, experimenting on them until their death, and then taking another kid, kidnapping another kid.
Yeah, no, I like that Geralt tells Ciri about those experiments and their intent to manipulate her, and that you know she must be on her guard. I that's a good little touch in the episode. Yeah. But yeah, it does, and it feels like things are really, the plot thickens.
Absolutely.
I mean, even with Triss meeting Istrid, even though they effectively come to the possibility of who the big bad is. Yeah. It comes from them telling one another about the Book of Monoliths and the missing novices, respectively. And from their side, their conclusion is that it's going to be used to banish these half elves from the continent, and you have that nice moment a bit later on with Geralt and Yen, where Yen is saying, "Who hates me? Who experiments on children?" And both of them as well then identify Stregobor as the dark mage who's backing Rience. So for very different reasons, there's people are coming to focus on Stregobor, and certainly as, with Yennefer making her case. But again, it's interesting. It seems the obvious choice, but is it simply he doesn't like elves, that maybe...
Or simply doesn't like Yen.
Or simply doesn't like Yen. So it's really, really sort of intriguing. And certainly with the assassination attempt on Yen as well, as she transports back from Redania to Aretuza, and you have the portal being corrupted and then her being attacked by an illusion that looks like Geralt, So, again, this brings Triss and Yen together, around the notion that something sinister is going on here, and it's dangerous to bring Ciri here. But there is some possible clue here with the dark stellacite powder that Yen has brought back from where she was attacked.
Yes.
And Triss and Istredd do a locator spell to find the book on the monoliths through that stellacite.
Yeah.
Where we get to see a elaborate rose, kind of thing. So I don't know quite what that means at this stage, but yes.
But seems to have set them on the path of
Stregobor
as well. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because he does seem very villainous. It's the character that's always kind of been there and stood against Yen, so you kind of assume it's him.
Yeah,
but there's definitely other possibilities, and I do think Tissaia seems to be
absolutely, yeah.
A possibility, let's say.
Definitely.
Maybe she's not being just dismissive. Maybe she is trying to cover something up about the girls that have gone missing, you know?
It just seems a little elusive, you know, and possibly suspicious in the circumstances as the audience, you know.
Yeah.
Forget about blood on the walls. It's fine.
Exactly.
Don't worry about them. I know where they are.
Yeah. And what about her partner as well?
Vildefort.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we see him, you know, in this episode where, you know, he's talking with Yen, but it's more about trying to protect Tissaia.
Yeah.
And her reputation that she's the one that has to clean up all the messes that, Yen makes. And, you know, she's losing currency on the council.
Yeah.
And don't do that. And maybe, you know, I don't get the sense, but I mean, if he's possibly in league with Tissaia, maybe he is that. You know, that's why he's trying to protect Tissaia by telling Yen, you need to make sure you clean up your own mess and you give her backing. You know,
or it's just a way of convincing Yen not to leave as well.
Yeah,
they have her where they want her, potentially. If they are the ones in charge of all this. They have Yen where they want her. They have Ciri where they want her. And she's not going to run away in the middle of the night again, like she did last time. Maybe that's what he's trying to do there. Cause remember, he was the one that turned on his own men, earlier on in the show, right? He had that strange moment where he turned around and killed one of his own men. So, I still wonder there's something there, but we don't know what it is yet. So, I just don't think it's as straightforward because everybody's reached the same conclusion on Stregobor. I just don't think it's as straightforward as it being Stregobor.
No, agreed.
But it could, just because the show's not finishing in 2 episodes time. So I feel like there might be something else in there. That was a very roundabout way, and I think we covered almost everything in the episode, in between mine and your point there. Couple of the quick notes. We see Dijkstra sending a rider to the naval headquarters to deliver a message. We eventually hear what that message is later in the episode. The message is that they need to bring reinforcements to arrive at Aretuza after dawn. And then we see that this rider was the rider that Ciri had seen his future at the beginning of the series, taking an arrow to his neck.
Which he does.
He takes an arrow to his neck and dies, not having delivered this message to the intended reinforcements for Dijkstra. So, firstly, how will that play out if Dijkstra thinks he's going to be getting reinforcements and they don't come? That's one thing. But interestingly, it plays into that discussion that Ciri had with Yen about using her visions and saving people. Yen told her at the time, what happens if you save someone and you make the continent worse because you've only seen a small window of what's happened to them?
Yeah. Because interestingly, in this case, Dijkstra gives the order to this rider before the invitation to come to Aretuza.
Absolutely. Yes. Very true. Very true. So could it be that if Ciri had saved this guy and he delivered the message, an army of Dijkstras could have turned up at Aretuza to take her, to get her from there. Yeah. So an interesting play on what happened back earlier on in the season. But that's one of the things I do like about this season of the show. It's really building on the previous episode. So while we're only watching one episode at a time, as you get through the series, you're learning more about the things you've already seen, which I do really like. Also Also love the closeout of the episode as everybody enters the ball. We have this kind of recurring question that each group is asking to themselves. Are you sure about this? So we have Philippa and Dijkstra arriving. Are you sure about this? And the response is, well, we get answers and then we act.
Yeah.
We have Triss and Istrid arriving. Are you sure about this? And they say, we'll do this together. Tissia and Vilgeforge arrive. They ask the question, are you sure about this? And they go, not in the slightest, says Tissia. And then finally, Geralt and Yen arrive. Yen asks, are you sure about this? And Geralt goes, are you?
Yeah.
Of course, because he can't give a straight answer. But I do love that each member of these four different groups come in with the same question. A great little touch at the end of the episode.
Definitely. The only little note I've got is Fringilla parties hard. I just love this scene. I think in some respects it was possibly slightly unnecessary, other than we hear that she wants to learn more about the missing ships that are going up and down the coast, and so on. As she's sort of listening in about the conclave.
So
that's
the big thing she learns.
She's wanted to know about the conclave. Yeah. But I like this Fringilla, that parties hard. I love the fact that it opens up with her screaming drunk. I'm not dead. You would think she wouldn't want to go anywhere near the alcohol after what she was put through, but she obviously has a taste for it. And again, another just very funny little moment where the two barmen are kind of talking and ignoring her. So she's just filling up her ale glass with like rubies, and then it's with flowers. And one of the bartenders just mentions, who keeps filling up these glasses with flowers, as he goes to actually pour her another beer.
Like, will this shut you up for a second? Here's a glass of beer. Because the conversation that they're having is effectively, because the conclave's coming, they will no longer have any more ale in the local tavern, because they're going to redirect all the supply up to Aretuza. So I know it's a really small thing, but I like that they're even seeing what happens to locals when the local the local rulers, I suppose, almost are taking all their livelihood and taking all their stock.
Definitely. So I just really like that scene as well. For me, I think it's really, again, just driving forward in a really nice way. I'm really enjoying the series, actually, overall, even with, I guess, episode 2 feeling a little disjointed. So yeah, I'd give this 4.5 sloppy drunks out of 5.
Very good. That's why you had to mention the point about Fringilla, because it wouldn't have made sense otherwise.
Well, it's actually a phrase that Ciri says as she,
of course.
She recites the argument about power-hungry mages, sloppy drunks, and what I said to Yen.
Yes.
So it comes from that, but it is equally applicable to Fringilla in this case.
Very good. Very good. Enjoyed that moment. And overall enjoyed this episode. Can't wait for the next episode, the final episode of this half of the season. I just think how it closed out with those moments of, are you sure about this, with each of the big groups? It's a really good way of writing out the end of the episode. So can't wait for the next episode. I had to hold off on press and play on this last one. Good stuff. We have a bit of feedback in from Coffee and Vodka, an email in from him. He says, greetings fellow seafarer defenders. This one seemed all about Stregobor. Even though he's always been Rience's patron, I never had him pegged as the big bad. Just seems too obvious. Nice to see the band back together, though it does seem like the calm before the storm, a storm in which I feel we might lose a main character. I won't pretend to understand all the alliances, real or temporary, among the kingdoms, but was Aretuza always considered the enemy of Redania, or is this an overt breaking of a treaty? And now that Fringilla now seems to be done partying and have found a mission, can hardly wait to see her become part of the mix. 4-paged mage meetings, Ciri sea salamander slayings, and minstrel mashups out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka.
Excellent stuff, Coffee and Vodka. In terms of the overt breaking of a treaty, I'm really not too sure on that. I think tensions between Redania and the Brotherhood of Mages occurred because of Yennefer's release of Kahir, who the Nilfgaardian. So I think it's coming from that.
Yes.
So I don't think there was, I don't know whether they were enemies or in that sense, but
I think it's like technically weren't they sending out a mage from Aretuza to each of the kingdoms? Wasn't that the original thing? So Philippa is from Aretuza, so they're not technically against Aretuza. They're against, as you say, Yen, and if they're supporting them and Yen hadn't apologized to the king, potentially they would still have that. Yeah. So I don't think there's a treaty as such.
And I think because at least for Redania, it's so caught up with Redanian intelligence. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a bit of the power play and the centers of power, and Aretuza is a key center of power, which you can imagine for Dijkstra, who is wanting to make Redania the power kingdom in the continent. Yeah, you know, not only is it Nilfgaard, but actually the Brotherhood it is in some ways problematic in different ways for him. And certainly with having Philippa, it's not that he's against mages, but he has a mage who is willing to be on the same page as him because I'm assuming of what happened between her and Tessia.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, there's lots of intrigue there, which I'm really excited about.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll get some answers in the fifth episode of the season well, next time we record. Good stuff. Thanks so much, Coffee and Vodka.
Yeah, thanks, Coffee and Vodka.
We also got a bit of feedback in from Dr. Bob Phillips after we recorded over in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV podcast industries. Dr. Bob says, in a room the size of Cahir's, why does he end up with a single bed? I mean, there's space big enough for at least a queen. Nice to see by the end that his sneaky, disreputable self is still very much in evidence, though. Delighted with the return of Monster of the Week and the impressive witchering from Ciri. I think we're all proud of her. The other thing that struck me is how the beautiful blue-eyed archaeologist is wearing far better tailored clothing this season. Glad the continent is catching up with masculine fashions and that the conclave will be an opportunity for show as well as tell. Oh yes, Dr. Bob, there's definitely going to be opportunity for some great costumes at the ball. And yes, Istrid did look fantastic. Yes, he looked absolutely gorgeous. Definitely very, very dapper in his new outfit. Yeah, we loved the scene with Ciri, taking on the witchering and showing her prowess as a fighter in this episode. It was really cool. As for Cahir's bed, I don't know. It seemed like a last minute decision to let him stay. Maybe it was just one of the side rooms. He wasn't given one of the best rooms in the castle, maybe until he'd carried out his mission. Maybe the next time we see him, he'll be in a very nice room. He'll get an upgrade. Thanks so much, Dr. Bob, for your feedback. Good stuff. If you want to send in any feedback on this half of the season of The Witcher, season 3, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. We'd love to hear your thoughts on these episodes as well.
Yes, absolutely. Remember, fellow witchers, please subscribe to the podcast and share us, because, of course, sharing the podcast is what, Derek?
Sharing the love.
Exactly.
This episode was full of love.
It certainly was. Yes, it really, really was. Of course, all your support is very welcome. You can support us as well monthly through patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, or you can support us on a one-off through buymeacoffee.com/TVPI.
Absolutely. Thanks so much to everybody that supports us and everybody that shares the podcast. It's
exactly.
Great to have you with us for our coverage of The Witcher. We'll be back next time to discuss the final episode of this part of The Witcher, episode 5, The Art of the Illusion. Remember, part 2 will be out on July 27th. We are also covering Secret Invasion on Disney Plus at the moment, and coming up later this month in July, we'll start our coverage of Good Omens Season 2. Good Omens, good show, good comedy.
Yes.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Off kilter as well.
Off kilter, weird, wacky, very British. Yes. Love it. Looking forward to it. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to you again next time.
Yes, thank you so much, fellow witchers, for joining us. Remember, in the meantime, before we meet again, keep watching, keep listening, and keep witching. And of course, prepare for the ball with your finest dancing shoes. And get ready for the conclave.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.